Welcome back to the Deep Dive. So our mission today, it's pretty straightforward. We've got the latest batch of comic releases, all the big plot points, the creative highlights.
Right.
But, we're not just doing a list. We want to really dig into the motivations, the themes, those kind of surprising character moments hidden in this week's best books.
Exactly. We're looking for those aha moments,
Yeah.
where a character does something that just clicks and suddenly you see them differently. We want to unpack the why behind what these creators are building.
And there's some big stuff to track this week. Last week, DC really dominated, didn't they? We had Justice League, the Omega X special, Absolute Superman 12, Absolute Evil #1.
Yeah.
They were everywhere.
Oh, yeah. DC was definitely on top. But what's interesting this week is how Image Comics really stepped up. It feels like a response, almost.
How so?
Well, Image put out 4 of, the absolute standout books this week. Really high-quality stuff. It kind of sets up this great creative clash between the big publishers.
Okay, interesting. Let's get right into it then. Let's start with the comic book of the week, which, as you said, comes from Image. We need to talk about power and contradictions in the Power Fantasy #12.
Yes. Okay, so this one's written by Kieron Gillen, art by Casper Weingard, and it's getting a lot of buzz for its moral complexity. It's about this character who's incredibly powerful, like one of the most powerful people in his world.
And what really grabbed me reading the reviews was how they made him more interesting, even more devious, not by just giving him more power, but by digging into his flawed humanity.
That's the core of it. The way they pull it off is they give you constant access to his inner thoughts, his internal monologue.
Wow, okay.
So you see him do these truly monstrous things, ruthless stuff. But then you hear his justification and it's all tangled up in insecurity and old grudges. And you almost feel sorry for him.
But isn't that tricky? Does it risk making the terrible things he does seem? It's okay, just because we see his trauma, where's the line there?
It's a fine line, for sure. But I think the book walks it well. It doesn't really frame his actions as justifiable. It's more like, given his broken view of himself, these actions feel inevitable to him.
Right.
The pity isn't for what he does. It's for the damaged self-image that makes him do it.
Yeah.
And that contradiction, that's what makes him so scary. He's a monster who genuinely believes he's the victim.
Wow, okay. That actually leads really well into the underrated comic of the week, Blood and Thunder #6. Because if Power Fantasy gives us this sympathetic monster, Blood and Thunder seems to give us a criminal, maybe an antagonist, whose extreme actions are driven by, real social problems.
Yeah, this one's from Benito Serrano and E.J. Su. It's about tracking this criminal who seems almost unkillable, but you figure out pretty quickly he's not just motivated by greed or malice.
What's his deal,
He's actively trying to help disenfranchised people left behind by this system.
Okay, but the description says his methods are extreme.
Oh, they are,
Yeah.
often violent. But from his perspective, they're completely justified because of specific systemic things that were done to him, to his community. So his crimes are, in a way, this radical form of protest.
So it messes with that whole hero villain thing for you, the reader.
Absolutely. And if you connect these 2 books, right, the powerful guy who's a monster and the criminal fighting for arguably a just cause, how does that make us rethink what heroism even means now? It shifts the focus from, who has the powers to why they're doing what they're doing.
Right, the motivation. Okay, speaking of immense power, let's pivot a bit. Let's talk about characters who are dealing very explicitly with the ethics of having godlike abilities, moving from personal trauma to, planetary responsibilities, starting with Binary #1.
Huge setup here. Stephanie Phillips writing, Giada Belviso on art. They take Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel,
Right.
and she gets the Phoenix Force powers from Jean Grey, right before Jen died.
Okay, wow. So Carol's obviously used to big power levels.
Yeah.
But the Phoenix Force that's a whole other level.
Yeah.
Destruction, rebirth, cosmic chaos.
Exactly. And the story shows her really struggling with that responsibility more than ever before. She's trying to use this incredibly dangerous, almost uncontrollable power just to keep these upset townspeople safe from the fallout.
But the interesting thing I picked up was the critique of how she does it.
Yes. That's what's fascinating. Her intentions are good where she wants to protect them. But the story asks this tough question. Is it okay to basically trap people, take away their freedom, even if it's supposedly for their own safety?
Even with good intentions, it's still wrong.
The story argues, yes, it's still fundamentally wrong. So she's fighting her own power, her own judgment. It's not just punching bad guys. It's this conflict between, absolute safety and basic freedom,
Hmm.
and you, the reader, have to kind of weigh that.
That's a great dilemma. And it flows right into Captain Planet #6
Mm-hmm.
by David Pepose and Emin Casellos. This had the fight of the week, didn't it? Captain Planet versus Captain Pollution.
It did. Big fight. But the thematic payoff was really the core of it.
Yeah, the heroes really stood their ground, even facing death. That was powerful. But the message from Captain Planet himself.
That was key. He tells Captain Pollution, basically, that his real strength isn't from the rings or his powers. It comes from the people he protects. It grounds these huge cosmic stakes back human connection and accountability. Power has to serve, not control. It echoes that binary theme, but from a different angle.
That idea of connection, community, perfect lead into our next section. Because if we're talking about characters defined by their city, we have to talk about Gotham. Huge week for the Batman books. Some really big reveals.
Oh, yeah. Got to start with Absolute Batman #13. Scott Snyder, Writer of the Week, deservedly so with Nick Dragotta on art. This issue got massive praise. People are calling it maybe the comic of the year
Oh.
and saying Absolute Batman is the best character going right now.
And Snyder earned that Writer of the Week title, you think, because of the reveals themselves or the build-up?
I think it's the pacing, the masterful build-up. He focused the tension around a couple of key characters before just dropping these bombshells.
Okay, like what?
Well, Absolute Catwoman was apparently the star of the issue, carrying a lot of the emotional weight. But the shocks. First, we find out the leader of the Red Hood gang. It's Harley Quinn.
No way. Really?
Harley
Yep.
ties her into this long-running mystery, but that wasn't even the biggest one.
Go on.
The real game changer? Batman tells all of Gotham who he is.
Wait, what? He unmasks.
To everyone.
So everyone reviews his identity and then basically declares he's coming for Bane, for a rematch.
Why now? What does that signal? Is the mask pointless now, or is this like an act of war where he needs Bruce Wayne's resources too?
I think it's both. It's like total declaration of war, but also maybe a sign that the old rules, the symbol alone, isn't enough anymore. He's forcing a final confrontation, all cards on the table. Wow. Okay, that aggressive move contrasts really interestingly with the other big Batman book this week. Batman, Dark Patterns #11. Writer Dan Watters, artist Hayden Sherman. This one had the villain of the week, the Child of Fire.
Right, but the thing people were really talking about wasn't just the villain, it was the artistry, the mood.
Yeah, I read about this moment where Batman is reflecting on that huge Gotham fire.
Yes. And his words were described as like weirdly poetic, finding some kind of dark beauty in all that destruction.
That's intense. Like the city itself has this tragic character arc.
Exactly. It makes sense that the cover for Dark Patterns 11 by Hayden Sherman was cover of the week. It apparently captured that brooding, almost aesthetic appreciation of tragedy perfectly.
Okay, moving away from Gotham, but sticking with these themes of identity shifts and legacy, let's look at the multiverse stuff, especially the Age of Revelation crossover at Marvel.
Right. Let's jump into Laura Kinney. Sabretooth #1. Written by Erica Schultz, art by Valentina Pinti. This tackles something fans have been wondering about for ages. Why adult Laura Kinney, who was Wolverine,
Yeah.
why she changed her code name to Sabretooth.
Sabretooth, that's loaded. That's Logan's nemesis. Why would she take that name?
Well, it's not just a random name change, it's a statement. And the reasons given tie right back into that theme of trauma we talked about earlier. It sounds like it's driven by two big things. The breakdown of her marriage, her relationship with her former husband,
Okay.
and dealing with a Logan who's become cold, unrecognizable, almost cruel. So taking the name Sabretooth, a name tied to violence, predation, Logan's dark side, it signals this: corruption of her own heroic identity, born out of deep personal pain and loss.
So again, like the power fantasy, it's about what was done to her shaping this extreme shift. It's not just her deciding to be edgy.
Precisely. It's a reflection of her broken state. And that theme of broken legacies carries over into World of Revelation #1.
This one has some big name writers, right? Al Ewing, Steve Fox, Ryan North.
Yeah, heavy hitters. This book dives straight into an alternate reality, maybe a future, where the whole point seems to be understanding how the histories of other characters feed into this pretty brutal present.
I heard it described as sad, but worth reading.
That's the consensus. It sounds like it really digs into what legacy and memory even mean when everything's gone wrong. It's not just, what if scenarios for fun. It's using the multiverse to really heighten the emotional stakes for these characters, like character studies under extreme pressure.
Gotcha. Necessary context for the whole crossover then.
Definitely seems that way.
Okay, one more big franchise check-in before we hit the weekly awards. Transformers number 25. Robert Kirkman writing, with Jorge Corona and Dan Mora on art. There was some curiosity, right? About how Kirkman, known for The Walking Dead and Invincible.
Yeah, his long-form, character-driven, often brutal stuff.
Right, how would he handle Transformers?
Well, the reaction seems overwhelmingly positive. People felt Kirkman totally got it. That he was the perfect choice, basically confirming he'd treat the franchise with respect, focusing on the emotional weight of the Autobot-Decepticon war, their relationships, not just, robots punching each other.
So focusing on the persons inside the robots.
Exactly. Sounds like a real win for that series.
Great. Okay, let's shift gears then. Time for the rapid-fire synthesis. Let's pull together the weekly awards and see what else stood out.
Sounds good. Let's start with Ultimate Black Panther number 21. Had a great week. T'Challa got Hero of the Week.
Okay.
And the Team of the Week was Black Panther, Killmonger, and the Dora Milaje, all working together. Sounds like some peak team dynamics in that issue.
Nice. And wasn't there a funny moment from that book, too? Amidst all the serious Wakandan politics.
Yes. Funny moment of the week came from Killmonger just casually admitting he wanted to sleep with Okoye.
Huh. Okay. That's unexpected.
Totally. It's those little humanizing bits that make these characters work, right? Punctures the tension.
Definitely. Now, on the complete opposite end, sheer shock value. Moment of the week.
That went to DCKO number 1 for the Joker apparently killing Batman.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
Just straight up eliminating him.
Seems like it. Just a brutal, attention-grabbing moment designed to make you go, what? And completely reset your expectations for that series.
Yikes. Okay. What about artistry? We mentioned the Dark Patterns cover, but who were artists of the week?
That went to David Marquez and Marissa Louise for the finale of the first volume of The Unchosen, issue number 4.
What stood out about their work?
Apparently, their use of color and layouts throughout the whole volume built this really strong sense of paranoia, claustrophobia, and in this final issue, they managed to clarify who the villains are,
Right.
while also somehow raising more questions.
Oh, like what?
Specifically, the ending apparently focuses on why people choose to stay in the main antagonist base, this place called the Tower, even when they know it's bad news.
Huh. So it comes back to motivation again. Not just the bad guy, but the people who enable them or are trapped.
Exactly. It circles right back to that question of internal conflict, maybe fear, maybe misplaced hope that keeps people in damaging situations. Complicity versus survival.
Okay, so if we wrap this all up, look back at the whole dive. The big takeaways seem pretty clear. You've got the really complex morality in the power fantasy, that sympathetic monster. You have binary questioning what wrong means even when you have good intentions but absolute power.
Right.
Then Gotham just getting completely shaken up with Batman's reveal and Harley's new role. And of course, Laura Kinney's tragic shift to Sabretooth.
Yeah, and notice that thread running through several of these. Powerful figures, the monster in power fantasy, the extreme criminal in Blood and Thunder, maybe even Laura becoming Sabretooth. Their actions, their identities are so deeply shaped by what was done to them, by past trauma. So here's something for you, the listener, to think about as you read these. When you see characters acting out of past hurts, especially powerful characters, where is that line? The line between trauma, explaining their actions, maybe even justifying them to a point, and actions that are just extreme, maybe indefensible, regardless of the cause?
That's a tough question. It seems like these creators are really leaning into that ambiguity right now, making us constantly reevaluate who's the hero, who's the monster, and why.
Exactly. It makes for some compelling reading.
It certainly does. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We will catch you next time.